In March 2026, a woman in Texas walked into her local grocery store with a list of 10 items. She left with 7. The other 3, milk, ground beef, and laundry detergent, had become too expensive for her. She had a job. Her husband also worked full-time. They weren't poor by any official definition, but somehow the basic act of buying groceries had become a problem. That same week, the Federal Reserve celebrated another quarter of steady inflation. The stock market hit a new record high. Economists declared the US economy was in good shape. At the same time, 57% of Americans said they believed the country was already in a recession. Surprisingly, both groups were right. The official numbers say America is fine, but many American people say America is broken. And the gap between these two viewpoints is the most important economic story of 2026, because it's not a disagreement about facts. It's proof that the United States is now running 2 separate economies at the same time. One is quietly thriving, the other is quietly falling apart, and the cracks are starting to spread. Economists have started using a new word to describe what's happening in America. They call it the K-shaped economy. Imagine a graph with 2 lines starting from the same point. One line goes up, the other line goes down. That's a K, and that's what the United States looks like right now. The top of the K is the wealthier 20% of Americans. They own homes that have appreciated in value. They own stocks that have soared. They've benefited from rising asset prices in ways that no other generation has. The bottom of the K is everyone else. The working and middle class who don't own significant assets, who pay rent, who feel the full weight of every price increase. Here's the data point that captures it best. The top 20% of earners in the United States now account for 57% of all consumer spending. That's a record. The bottom 80% are increasingly absent from the economic picture, not because they don't exist, but because they no longer have the money to participate. That is why the headline numbers look fine. GDP growth keeps coming in solid because the wealthy keep spending. The stock market keeps climbing because companies are investing massively in artificial intelligence. Unemployment looks low, around 4.4%, partly because fewer people are looking for work, not because there are plenty of jobs. The averages hide the disaster underneath. Look closer, and the cracks are everywhere. The US economy added an average of just 9,700 jobs per month in 2025. That's not a typo. Not 97,000, 9,700. Excluding recessions, it was the weakest year of hiring in more than 20 years. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has stated publicly that he believes the official numbers are overstated, and that revised data will show the country has actually been losing jobs since April. Consumer prices have risen 29% since the pandemic. Wages haven't kept pace for the bottom half. Nearly half of Americans say they couldn't cover an unexpected $1,000 expense without going into debt. Credit card balances are hitting record highs. And buy now, pay later loans, which used to be for furniture or vacations, are now being used to buy groceries. The 2 economies have lived alongside each other for a while now, but the forces holding the top up are starting to weaken. And when the top falls, there is nothing underneath to catch it. The American economy is being propped up by 3 things right now. None of them are guaranteed to last. The first is the artificial intelligence boom. Tech companies are pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into semiconductor chips, data centers, and the energy infrastructure needed to run AI. This single category of investment has been the largest driver of US economic growth for the past 2 years. Without it, the headline GDP numbers would already be flashing warning signs. But here is what most people don't realize about the AI investment story. A growing share of it is being funded by debt. Companies are borrowing from the financial markets to build infrastructure that may not generate returns for years. If the AI boom turns out to be more hype than productivity, if the demand for these services doesn't materialize the way Wall Street is betting it will, the largest engine of US growth disappears overnight. Some forecasters are now predicting a sharp pullback in business investment in 2027 and 2028 if AI demand disappoints. The second prop is wealthy consumer spending. The top members of the K-shaped economy keep spending freely because their wealth is growing. Their stocks have gone up. Their home prices have gone up. They feel rich, so they spend like they're rich. This single behavior is keeping total consumer spending afloat. But this creates a dangerous dependency. The entire US economy now relies on a small group of wealthy households continuing to feel wealthy. If the stock market drops 10%, a normal correction by historical standards, the wealth effect reverses. Wealthy households spend less. Aggregate consumer spending collapses faster than it did in 2008 because in 2008, the bottom 80% had room to fall. This time, they don't. They've been falling for years. The third prop is something most people don't even see. Tariffs raised the cost of imports starting in 2025, but the full price impact hasn't hit American consumers. Companies bought a lot of inventory before tariffs took effect, and they've been selling that pre-tariff inventory at the old prices. As that inventory runs out, prices on a wide range of goods are set to rise further in 2026. Goldman Sachs estimates that this tariff structure alone will add roughly 1% to inflation this year. All of this is hitting just as the federal government has run out of tools it would normally use to soften an economic downturn. The national debt has crossed $38 trillion. Interest payments on that debt are now near 20% of all federal government revenue. 1 out of every 5 tax dollars goes to paying interest on debt the government already has. That money cannot be used for stimulus, for tax cuts, or for safety net expansion. It's already spoken for. The Federal Reserve, which rescued the economy in 2008 and again in 2020 by cutting interest rates and buying bonds, is now trapped. Inflation is still too high to allow aggressive interest rate cuts. The bond buying programs that helped solve problems during previous downturns have been quietly closed. The safety net that caught America twice in the past 15 years is no longer in place. If you're learning something new, consider subscribing. Most of what we cover here never makes the mainstream news, but it probably should. For most Americans, the recession isn't coming. It's already here. The official data just hasn't caught up to the reality on the ground. The hiring rate, the share of jobs being filled relative to total employment, has fallen to its lowest level since the early days of the pandemic. Job openings are down. New graduates are struggling to find work. Workers who lose their jobs are taking longer to find new ones. The labor market looks stable in the headline numbers, but underneath, it's grinding to a halt. Small businesses, which employ nearly half of all American workers, are reporting falling revenue, rising input costs from tariffs, and growing difficulty getting credit. The private credit markets that funded much of the recent business expansion are showing early signs of stress. The lifeblood of U.S. employment is quietly bleeding. The American manufacturing sector, the one that was supposed to come roaring back under the new tariff regime, is shrinking. The country lost 68,000 manufacturing jobs in 2025. The reason is straightforward and almost ironic. Roughly half of all U.S. imports are not finished goods. They're components, raw materials, and parts that American companies use to make things. When you tax those inputs, you raise costs for the very domestic manufacturers you're trying to protect. The policy designed to revive American factories is contributing to their decline. And then there's the household level evidence that doesn't show up in any official report. Americans are using credit cards not for vacations or big purchases, but for groceries, gas, and utilities. Buy now, pay later loans are now common for everyday essentials. This is the textbook signature of a population in financial distress, just spread across millions of households instead of concentrated in one obvious crisis. Housing has become impossible. Mortgage rates remain elevated despite the Fed's rate cuts because long-term bond yields haven't fallen with them. Buying a home is now out of reach for most Americans under 40 without family help. Renters are facing record-high rent burdens, with many spending more than half their income just on shelter. The traditional American path to building wealth has for the bottom 80% simply closed. Every one of these stories has been reported. None of them on its own is a crisis. Together, they are the unmistakable shape of an economy where most people are quietly struggling while the official statistics say everything is fine. When the United States economy turns, it doesn't turn alone. The dollar is the foundation of the global financial system. The US is the world's largest consumer market. Every other country we've covered on this channel, Canada, France, Turkey, Egypt, South Korea, depends on American economic stability through trade, currency reserves, or capital flows. When America weakens, the global economy weakens with it. And the K-shape isn't just an American story anymore. The same pattern, wealthy households thriving, the middle and working class struggling, official data masking the divergence, is now showing up in the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and Germany. The US is the loudest example, but it isn't the only one. Here's the historical pattern that should make everyone concerned. Every major economic disruption in recent memory, 2008, the dot-com crash, the 1970 stagflation, was preceded by official data saying everything was fine. By the time the official numbers admitted the problem, the structural damage had already been done. The lag between economic reality and economic data is where crises grow. However, there is one thing that could genuinely change this trajectory: artificial intelligence. The same AI investment that's currently propping up GDP could, in theory, eventually deliver real productivity gains across the entire economy. If AI tools genuinely make workers more productive at scale, not just at tech companies, but across small businesses, factories, hospitals, and offices, that's the one force that could pull the bottom K part of the economy back up. Real wage growth could resume. Companies could afford to hire again without raising prices. The two economies could begin to reconverge. That's the optimistic case. And it's a real possibility, but there are two problems with relying on it. First, AI has to actually deliver productivity gains rather than just consuming capital. The investment so far has been enormous. The economic returns, in terms of measurable productivity, have been modest. The technology may turn out to be transformational, or it may turn out to be the next dot-com bubble. We don't know yet, and the people building the infrastructure don't know either. Second, even in the best-case scenario, this takes time. Researchers at Stanford have pointed out that the last comparable technological transformation, the spread of industrial electric motors in the early 1900s, took 30 years to reach 80% adoption. Even if AI works exactly as promised, meaningful productivity gains likely won't show up in the broader economy until 2027, 2028, or beyond. By the time AI rescues the American economy, the bottom 80% of Americans will have spent years trapped in the K-shaped pain. The way out exists, it just may not arrive in time. The US economy isn't crashing. The headline numbers won't show a disaster for months, maybe years. But the foundation is cracking. Working families are running out of room. The wealthy are propping up consumer spending that the rest of the country can no longer afford. AI investment is filling the gap that organic growth used to fill, and the safety nets that rescued previous downturns are no longer available. The recession isn't coming. For most Americans, it's already here. The only question is how much longer the official numbers can keep ignoring it. To see how the $38 trillion debt story the United States is in the middle of is unfolding, click on the video on the screen.